Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we've got a show for you today. Recently, there was a spending bill that went to the floor. Elon Musk spoke about it on Twitter, and many credit him with getting it thrown out at first pass. Rand Paul has made comments such as we should elect Elon Musk to be Speaker of the House. He has been appointed or given an appointment to a quasi-governmental institution called DOGE that they're putting up. Basically, people are worried about the level of influence this unelected man has over American politics. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Is Elon Musk an oligarch or simply a speaker for the masses, giving voice to the unheard? We're going to talk about it. We're going to give each of these lovely guests a chance to tell you who they are and what their initial thoughts are. And we're going to start. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you, Wick, for having me on this panel. This is my second one. I always appreciate these conversations, and I even watch sometimes too when I'm not on. So thank you so much for hosting these. Yeah, I absolutely believe Elon Musk is an oligarch, or this American oligarchy, positioning himself in the government. He's the richest man in the world. I feel he bought the U.S. election this year. He'd be engaged within those actions. He bought Twitter for Donald Trump, even though he was out. Yeah, he came out and said, I'm not gonna pick a side, or I don't know what the exact quote tweet is now, but he tweeted out, like, I'm not gonna choose a political party, and he ended up literally buying Twitter for Trump, and also donated $277 million to his campaign. I feel that he completely is trying to buy his way into the U.S. government and then dictate decisions that politicians are doing, and then which also affects the American people in return, with this power that he has and his money. So that is my position on Elon Musk.
Well, thank you for being here. Always appreciate you coming by. We'll see how it goes. Lactoid TV, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Wick. If you guys like what I'm about to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm pretty much fine with what Elon's doing. I think oligarch is an interesting term, in that it's wrong. I mean, look, Citizens United just determined this a while ago. This is freedom of speech. What's the alternative? You want Elon to not be able to talk about the issues that are important to him? Are you not allowed to fund commercials? Because if that's the case, then there goes Michael Moore, there goes Leonardo DiCaprio, and all of Hollywood. You're not allowed to go out and speak and hold events that, in which you express your point of view. Of course, you're allowed to go out and express your point of view. I understand that he's a wealthy dude because of all of his business dealings. But just because you're a wealthy dude and you have a lot of influence and you want to use that influence to advance your agenda publicly, I mean, it's not like there's shady deals happening here. He's going out on Twitter and just saying this. I think it's totally fine. I think that I get a little bit uneasy when you have very wealthy people sort of under the table, not talking publicly, not really trying to express their viewpoints, sort of doing backroom deals. I guess that's where I get a little bit uncomfortable, and I can agree that would be perhaps an issue. I don't think that's really what Elon Musk is doing here, especially given the pushback he's been getting. But otherwise, I think it's great that somebody's advocating for financial responsibility.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Next up, we have James Meese. Is that how you say your name, sir?
That is how I say my name,
okay,
yes.
What are your thoughts? First-time guest on my show. Give us what you got.
First-time guest, yes, thanks for having me, Wick. I've watched you a few times. I like what Lactoid just said here, mostly that, is Elon Musk an oligarch? Maybe. I think our oligarchs compete with each other here in America. It's not like Russia where everybody has to listen to Putin. So I'm fine with him expressing his views. I'm fine with him being an advisor to the president. Presidents need advisors. I think if he can achieve something that's a more efficient government, if they can just spend less than Biden spent, that'll be a win for me. I actually even I voted for Kamala, but I'm still excited about Trump and Elon. I've been an Elon fan for many years, so I'm open-minded when it comes to these things, and I'm going to wish for the best and not hope for the worst.
Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. Thanks for being here. Katusha, give us what you got.
Thank you for having me. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Premier Katya. Basically, my opinion on this is it is extremely concerning. Not just, that people are, utilizing their free speech or they are donating to campaigns. There is something completely unique about this situation. Obviously, in terms of that he bought one of the largest social networks in the world that had and still does one of the biggest influences in the world and used it to push specifically one singular party. Then there's, him basically being there, attached at the hip to Trump every single, minute of every day, it seems. To the point where it gets really cringy with, the whole first buddy thing. That was very funny to me. And then you get situations obviously, with the spending bill previously, where he was expressing dislike and things did turn in his favor. I'm not about to say 1000%, right? Oh, well, he absolutely 1,000,000% caused this, that, and the other. But it's very concerning to me, right? Because it seems like Trump's presidency, which I wasn't a fan of to begin with, but especially with this influence, is kind of bought and sold by people beyond just him. And I also think this just exposes massive hypocrisy that, it's very obvious here, because if anybody on the left was doing the same thing, like they accused, for example, George Soros of doing for so many years, if he was doing it to this degree, people would be shitting and pissing and losing their fucking minds about to get out in the streets and blah, blah, blah. Yet we're supposed to just be okay with it. So, we'll see.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Last but not least, Carl, give us what you got.
Hey, I'm Carl, or Soyaddle. You can find me on soyaddle.tv once in a while. You can find me on youtube.com/@ecomodernist1 for my Sunday AM show about eco-modernism, environment, energy. What is going on with Elon Musk is bananas. It is, yes, as Katusha said, if and when rich people get involved in democratic politics, the right loses their mind and goes on pizza planet crazy conspiracy theories. And it's just standard operating procedure for the right. When folks like Musk, like the Koch brothers, they just throw money at politics. And Citizens United was exactly that problem. Now, it's not exactly as Lactoid represented it. It was about dark money funding a specific action against a specific candidate. That was what the lawsuit was about. It was saying Hillary Clinton is an awful, rotten person, and you should not vote for her. And saying that we can't regulate that because money is speech, that's crazy. Crazy pants. The other thing that's crazy about this whole situation is Musk meddling directly in the omnibus spending bill, saying, oh, I'm going to trim the fat, I'm going to clean up the government, and people saying that, well, you could just spend these things as individual bills. They should be able to stand on their own 2 feet if they're individual bills, but that's not how our government works these days because of the silent filibuster rules and the Democrats' failure to enact the nuclear option to sort of blow this up so that you can actually get stuff passed and get things done. We have a partial rollback of the silent filibuster, but we still haven't solved that. And so this idea of Musk cutting line items out of the omnibus spending bill is it's cope. It is not actually fairly representing the issue.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here. And with that, let's open up the discussion, right? Go ahead if anyone's got thoughts. Otherwise, I got some questions for y'all. It's up to you.
Musk has always been an opportunist, from how he made his family, or how he got his family money and turned that into billions and billions of dollars using payment systems online, PayPal, using intellectual property he bought, using the government to fund his space exploration campaign. Because yes, he finds smart people and he gets them to do smart things, but he is not himself a genius. He is a wielder of power. like James said, we have oligarchs fighting oligarchs, and he is an opportunist, and his latest opportunity was the US government.
I guess.
So
oh, go ahead.
can I respond to a couple things? I understand that Elon's father and parents were wealthy. I still have yet to see evidence that he was given any kind of substantial funds from his parents, any kind of
Just like Trump.
inheritance.
Yeah.
Hold on. There's not even like $1 million that anybody can point to. Apparently, he was estranged from his father early on, and then he went on to develop code. Like I think he coded
He
some
came to
programs when he
Canada
was
with
9
like
years old.
$3,000, right? Like,
Yeah, and then developed
it
PayPal,
wasn't
did a whole bunch of
much, but
stuff. He's a little bit more of like perhaps a savant when it comes to that kind of thing. So again, if you have something to prove that, because I've heard that sort of like floated around, but I've never seen any kind of definitive claim, like definitive proof showing that he received any kind of like even marginally substantive fund from his family. It seems like he made it. A couple other points that I wrote down here. I understand he bought Twitter and that his personal account was pushing for Donald Trump. But I mean, what's the evidence that Twitter itself, or I guess X itself, was pushing for Donald Trump? I mean, there was other famous rich people like Mark Cuban that were more than able to post rapidly and constantly about how Donald Trump was awful, which he often did. Again, Mark Cuban, multi-billionaire, perfectly fine.
Does he own
George
Twitter?
Soros,
It was
he doesn't
him
own
boosting his own
Twitter.
shit in the algorithm, as well as him, for example, taking over the At
Exactly.
America account to push his own pack for Donald Trump. Anybody who doesn't own Twitter can't just like go, oh, I'll pluck that, like,
Yeah.
right? You know
Wait,
what I
pluck
mean?
what?
The At
America.
America account.
Yeah, Pack America. Plus, it also has additional reach with that gold check mark on there too.
Wait, hold on. When you're saying the Pack America account, that was like, describe what you mean by pluck.
So
Twitter.com
basically, before this,
/
Twitter's account that was at America was owned by someone else. Probably had it since like the beginning of time. And basically, he commandeered this handle to push his pack for that benefited Donald Trump. Like,
Was it
if you
being
don't own the
used
platform,
beforehand?
Does it
Yeah,
Or did he
matter?
just like the
it
like
name?
doesn't. I don't
Is
care
that
because
relevant?
anybody who doesn't own the
he did do that.
platform,
He did do
can't
that.
really
Okay,
Yes.
so
do
apparently
that
he has the
unless it's
advantage
up
of
for
having a specific.
grabs.
Sure, apparently he has the advantage of having a specific name.
He did
If
do
that's
that, and
Yes.
if that's the
it's his
extent
platform, right?
of then I'm not particularly concerned. When it comes
Okay,
to
If you
George
look,
let me.
Soros, when it comes
Oh,
to George Soros, real quick, I think the concern is that maybe his shit's a little bit more backdoor and not as public, and that he's obviously advancing causes that we don't agree with. But that's where my main criticism of him. But I mean, if George Soros wants to come out and say, "I really like this bill, pass this bill, come on, come on, come on," that's totally fine. That's perfectly within his rights to do so.
Is it though? Do you really think though? Do you really think that it'd be okay and there'd be no response if George Soros came out and did this?
Look,
There'd
you're
be a
debating
response
me.
just
I
like
can't
you're
speak for
responding.
all of like people on the internet, but I can say
Right, I'm
I'd be
asking your
fine with it.
opinion. I'm asking your truth.
I'd be fine with it. Sure. If George Soros wants to come out and say, "I thought this bill was really good," he should do so. Everyone has the
What
right to say that if they
what's the
choose to.
problem that you have with George Soros specifically?
I don't have a major problem with George Soros specifically.
Yeah.
What's the
So what issue do you have with Elon Musk specifically?
Elon Musk specifically
Yeah, as compared
is
to
the
everybody
fact
else who's involved in
yeah,
politics who's a billionaire.
is the fact
so
that he is working to dismantle sort of some of the core functions of the government. And that's what
can
I
you
consider like
just
his
for discussion, when you say core functions of the government, can you give an example? Just so we
we
have
have
one thing to bite
budget
on. Right.
reconciliation is what I consider in practice a practical core function of the government. We have things that we know we need to get done, and the two parties, they might not agree at any single point in time to fund any one of these, but as a package, budget reconciliation, omnibus spending bills, we can come together in a bipartisan fashion and allow the government to continue to operate, to fund the things that we can kind of agree on. 50-50 vote, we can kind of agree all these are okay. We can accept these. And literally, you look at the news about this, Musk's opposition to spending, he's calling for a government shutdown.
Not only that, but threatening politicians' jobs too, and say they need to be out of government completely, or
like, we need to
Republicans that
primary
are
these people.
or they'll primary the Republicans specifically to get new politicians in.
I think they're actually. I think the
I
left
wanna,
in
hold
this
on,
panel is.
just real quick, Lactoid. I want to give Meese a chance to get in. He's raising his hand. He's trying to get in.
I
Go
want to
ahead.
try. I'm going to try. So I think what they're trying to do here is change the culture. right? So if you look at the bill that was 1,500 pages and went down to 110 or something, like that's just a cultural change. That's like the process has been this way for so long. You're like, but it has to be this way. It has to be this way. It's always this way. I know it's always this way, and I fucking hate it. But at the end of the day, they did vote on it, though, right? They still voted on the thing. So Congress still voted on it. It wasn't Musk voting on it. It was Congress voting on it. So if you're trying to change a culture that is this embedded and it's like this committed to doing things, wastefully, slowly, things none of us want, there will be people that push back against you and it will be rough. But if we can actually make things more efficient, I mean, I would be happy with that. So that's what I'm
What's
hoping.
your problem with its
Yeah,
length? This 110
yeah.
pages versus whatever. What is your issue with its length?
And the
Well,
spending was the same.
it's so big that you can't even read the thing before you have
Spending
to
didn't
vote
change
on it.
though. The spending didn't even change though. They lowered the amount
It
of
changed a little
papers.
bit. I agree with you. I agree. It changed a little bit. That's why I'm saying change the perception, change the culture.
So do you think that there's might be a
So-
reason why things are said in a lot of words and things that
I
are
do.
going to be written into law that are going to
course,
be
of course.
bills? Like, my concern here is so much of what Elon is pushing is stuff that appeals to people who are not as informed, right? Because they're like, oh my gosh,
Actually,
why is there stuff
yeah.
for molasses research in here?
I
Oh my
understand.
gosh, why is it so long? When it's stuff like, hey, these are things that affect a jurisdiction that
I get
somebody's
it.
fighting for, but
But- But why do it last minute always? Like why not streamline the process so that it is, more functional? Let's make a functional
how's he
process
doing
instead
that?
of
How is that being
Instead of-
streamlined and
How's that
functional?
happening?
Yeah.
is it easier or harder to vote on something that's bigger or smaller? Which one is easier to understand?
Well, people have staff. It has to do with what the legislation is actually going to do and what it's going to enumerate once it's passed. Because once it's passed, right, and the president signs it, that's the law, and that's what's going to happen. So we would rather have more information ahead of time instead of be asking questions later and being like, this 100 and whatever pages. It doesn't tell you what the definition of this term is, or who this actually applies to. I don't know. Where's this money even going?
So okay,
You know?
let's go the other direction. Let's make 10,000 page bills then. Let's get even more detail.
Wait. What are you going to fund specifically? Like, what is the difference?
Well,
And the difference is sort of the difference in funding.
I
Are
get
you
that.
saying we should have 10 times as many representatives so that we have 10
Well-
times as many districts to fight for?
Are all other things equal? Would you rather have more pages or less pages?
More.
Are you
All things
advocating
would
for
not
more?
be equal.
I'd
All
rather
things
know
would not
more
be equal.
information.
Can I?
Okay, so you'd rather have 10,000
Go
page
ahead,
bills instead of
Lactoid. Let's let
1,500.
Like-
Lactoid. Let's let Lactoid.
Well, I was going to say, like, the lefties have shown their hand here. We don't have to get bogged down in this conversation because it seems like why you think he's an oligarch is because you don't like what he's advocating for. This is what it is. It's like the
Nope.
point that you guys are
It's
really
more
upset
so on the
about is like,
principle. It's the
oh
principle
God,
more
like
so
he
than what
wants
he's
to
Hold on,
hold
Mike,
Real quick, hold on, Lactoid.
He's done things that others
Andrew,
have not.
hold on, just real quick.
My bad,
Andrew,
my bad, Mike.
No, it's fine. No, I'm asking you specifically. You said it's more about the principle. Can you elaborate on that, please? What principle here, or is it that you are concerned with, or that
Yeah,
causes you to look at Elon and what he's doing with suspicion? Go ahead.
Yep, it's not even about his free speech, right? I know that was the argument made right away, was that, well, he has the freedom of speech to say these things, and for sure, definitely, you can go on his Twitter, but he owns the platform. He's directly manipulating the process in which the bills are the process of which it's voted upon and which it's engaged upon. Like, while that's happening, he's straight up like tweeting.
How's he manipulating it?
He's tweeting at specific politicians and adding them into his tweets and saying, you need to primary this one, we need to go after this one.
Wait. Hold on. Is that not freedom of speech?
When he's positioned himself in the power and he's responsible for this Department of Government Efficiency that Trump put him in, apparently, and he's got a new government role now.
No. If you are on your Twitter account and you're saying, hey, I don't like the way this guy voted, let's primary him, and like that specific, what principle does that action violate?
Do I have the president's ear? Am I in the government? Am I in the Department of Government Efficiency? Am I going to be?
Yeah. So hold on. If
You're
the president,
saying it's illegal. We're saying it's
hold
wrong.
up. Hold up. If the president, hold on. The president listens to you. All of a sudden, like now, this principle of you being able to speak is like doesn't exist. Like
You have more of a
my understanding of
responsibility.
my understanding
more
is that my
responsibility.
understanding of freedom of speech, when you post on your public Twitter and say, hey, this is bullshit, we should primary this guy. Trump can see that. Trump could say, "Oh, fuck this guy, I don't like him," or Trump can say, "I like this guy. Maybe I'm going to listen to what he has to say." Whether or not people listen to what you have to say is irrelevant to the fact that you have a right to say it. Elon Musk isn't violating any principles by
Lactoid,
going
let
on
me
his
ask you a
Twitter
question,
and
and
talking
I see
about
your
this.
other
It's perfectly
hands.
reasonable.
Let me ask you a question though, Lactoid, right? Do you
And
think
George
that
Soros can do it too?
Sure, but do you think that the calculation changes when the person who is saying, "Hey, Mr. Trump or President Trump, I want you to do X, Y, and Z," do you think the calculation changes between, say, me, who is a nobody, who doesn't like Trump, right, who never voted for him, who never gave him money, or Elon Musk, who's given him millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, who there is a extra level of indebtedness there? Don't you think it changes the calculation at all? Again, separate from the morality or legality of it, don't you think that there's a substantive difference between someone who is continuously funneling money into a politician, telling that politician to do something, versus average Joe?
Well, I thought we were here to talk about the morality of it because I think everybody agrees that it's not illegal.
But in order to
if you're saying
discuss the morality of it, we need to define
why I
the
said it's
difference.
principle.
Well, no, because no matter, even if you have a lot of power, it doesn't mean you lose your freedom of speech. Is it true that somebody with like as much resources as Elon Musk is going to have more of a say, just like someone like Michael Moore, just like somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio, and like Mark Cuban? Yeah, of course, these people are going to have like an outsized voice. I mean, these are the kind of the upper echelons of society. They're going to go out and they're going to be listened to a little bit more.
In some cases, they should not have those rights. And I'm trying to sort of redirect us towards why are monopolies illegal? Why, or when do we take action against monopolies? We have some natural monopolies, but when do we actually take action against them?
I mean,
and why do we need
to? Very specific, like antitrust legislation.
Right. So if someone is using an enormous amount of influence and leverage to take over another sector of our economy, that would be antitrust, right?
Well, hold on. And yeah, if you want to criminalize that or illegalize it, you can try. The problem is the Supreme Court's already taken a look at this, and you can't, because it violates. And unless you want to amend the First Amendment, good luck. You can't do that. Well, people have their freedom of speech.
I think we need to ethically look at how what Musk has done, taking over the giant megaphone of Twitter, has allowed him to leverage that into influencing our politics. And it's not what he's doing, it's how he did it, how he got here using tens and tens of billions of dollars of leveraged capital in order to acquire Twitter and in order to fund the election for Donald Trump.
Can I just
clarify? If he didn't own it, he would still have a large audience.
Oh, not nearly.
He was still the most followed account.
Let me ask you: is Mark Cuban an oligarch? Is Mark Cuban an oligarch?
Undoubtedly, yes, but he does not have the leverage.
Who's not an oligarch? How many Twitter followers do I have to have before I become an oligarch?
It doesn't matter if they're an oligarch or not. It's how they use their
power. No. You said Mark Cuban was. I'm just out of curiosity. You said Mark Cuban was an oligarch. How? When do I become an oligarch? When do I become an oligarch? How many Twitter followers?
This might be how you frame the Wick has framed the panel, because it's a catchy title, but the crime is not being an oligarch. As much of a lefty as I am, the crime is manipulating the political process.
Yes.
By speaking out about your preferences.
No, how do you by using $44 to $50 billion to buy Twitter and then fund.
Let me clarify.
$277 million for Trump.
Yeah, let me clarify Citizens United for you guys for a second. So this was a case.
This actually doesn't have anything to do with Citizens United, because that was Clinton as a candidate versus a small dark money PAC.
Hold on, I understand that Citizens United wasn't this specific situation, but as all Supreme Court cases do, they outline a principle that elucidates what the law is. So, for Citizens United, what it determined is, in the same if Michael Moore gets to go out and make films, right, and spend a fuck ton of money doing so, that have a very direct political slant. Hollywood gets to make very directly political movies and everything and spend a fuck ton of money on it. Because if you're going to have the government come in and say, no, you actually can't spend all this money advocating for this particular position or criticizing this particular candidate, then that violates the freedom of speech of the writers. It violates the freedom of speech of the actors. It violates the freedom of speech of the people who own the movies. And so the whole point was, look, if you use your own resources to speak out, whether it be driving around with a big sign in your car or making a short film or making a movie, et cetera, or making a campaign ad with a super PAC, that expenditure of money on your personal point of view is freedom of speech.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what Musk did.
What if I took my billions of dollars and I bought, let's say, 4 cable news outlets, 4 24/7 cable news stations, and I advocated for all of them to start covering more positively the Green Party, and I had, the Green Party take over all of American politics with this enormous influence? That would be my freedom of speech, right?
Yeah, you've described George Soros, by the way, who has spent a fuck ton of money acquiring media companies.
Oh, so now he's relevant.
Hold up.
Yeah.
And I said I have no problem with George Soros. I said I have no problem with George Soros. If you buy media companies, you express your point of view.
And what has he done?
I understand.
He's done that? George Soros has done that?
Yeah, George Soros gives a fuck ton of money to like specifically progressive causes to express their point of view.
But he hasn't bought a media company. He hasn't monopolized a channel of communication.
What's the fundamental difference, if I may ask? To this is to Andrew, to Kyle, to Carl, I should say. My bad. And to Kadisha. What's the fundamental difference here between someone like Soros funneling billions of dollars into causes that he likes versus what Elon is doing now? What's the fundamental difference here?
Or Bloomberg.
One big difference is right now, especially, okay, like I understand people can make arguments for buying Twitter, and then you can go back and forth and say, hey, something's that big, maybe stuff should, be more of a publicly, handled thing, because it's the town square and blah, 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 blah. But now after Trump has been elected, right, I think the big difference is, are we trying to influence things like, for example, put messages and ads in front of the people who will then vote? Or are we stepping on the toes of people who were elected and trying to affect situations where people were elected after the fact, or people, in positions where they have to be confirmed by Senate, like these cabinet positions, when him, having the ear of Trump is affecting things and that need to be part of an elected position. I think that's the difference if we're talking before the election, talking to voters, or after the election, talking to politicians in that sort of way.
I don't see a difference here.
You also just laid it out too. Like Elon Musk is directly engaging in that electoral process and people that are voting for those that are going to be in power and politicians. And like we've already said that he's outright tweeted at politicians that they're going to be primaried if they don't go along with his specific agenda. I'm not seeing that from George Soros at all. He funds like grassroots efforts and other progressive efforts on the ground that have nothing to do with like U.S. government functions.
Wait,
it's almost like, again, I don't want
to. And they do it.
Hold on, let Andrew finish.
I got one more. And I don't want to create another whole other debate on topic, but it's the same type of people that will compare like the January 6th riots to the BLM riots of 2020 and the purpose behind them, right? One was police brutality. The other one was to try to stop the electoral process. It's very important to understand that. And I feel like that's like George Soros to Elon Musk. Elon Musk directly engaging in government actions and stopping government processes from taking place outright, blatantly. And then you have George Soros funding grassroots efforts and other progressive means.
I actually agree that the comparison, like between BLM and January 6th and Soros and Musk, perhaps it's a little bit similar because both BLM and January 6th were both riots based on lies. And Elon Musk and George Soros are both billionaires funding their particular wanted policy positions. So just like Mark Cuban does, just like Bloomberg does, right? Bloomberg owns a fucking magazine. He uses money to run for
Thanks for the 5 gifted Wick
using
TV
his own
memberships.
fucking money, like that through the media in order to like to try to get into position. Just because you criticize a politician after they've won compared to before they've won, that's entirely irrelevant to whether or not you have the right to criticize people or use your own resources to amplify the criticism of those people. That's what freedom of speech is.
We're having a freedom of speech debate. Are we talking about freedom of speech? Or are we talking about Elon's role in the government now? And
I think what this is, honestly, I think this is sour grapes because you guys lost. I really think that. I really. I mean, you got Bloomberg and Mark Cuban and Soros doing this shit for years. No one gives a fuck.
God, if they had the heir to the president and they bought entire social media networks to get somebody elected,
yeah,
oh
Bloomberg
my God, then
buying
you
a whole magazine.
y'all would be fucking rioting.
What magazine did he buy?
Bloomberg, right?
Oh,
really? How did he?
Literally named after him.
I mean,
did he it depends on how you use your platform as well, because here with Elon, the way that he used it afterwards and the reach that he had is nowhere in comparison to what happened with Bloomberg
Well,
buying a magazine to talk about business. Come on.
why don't we just talk about Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, did not endorse the Democratic candidate.
And it made liberals
I mean,
mad
this-
too.
Right.
didn't.
We're so mad about this, but it's like, oh, I gotta be politically neutral. That's the right thing to do. He is like the number 2 most wealthy person on the 2 or 3 most wealthy person on the planet. And Musk is above him and is like wielding his power with gusto.
And by the
I
way,
think,
back to
like-
Lactoid, your comparison between BLM and January 6th. Let's say that
BLM was worse, true.
Oh, that's great.
Okay,
Let's
well,
see if
I
we-
don't want to.
No,
I'm
really
sorry,
quick,
Wick. I'm sorry, Wick. I'm
Hold
so
on,
sorry.
Hold on. So thank you,
Sorry, Wick.
running joke, for the 5 gifted memberships and buying one for yourself. Thank you for that. Yeah, I wanna try to keep us at least in the realm of the topic that we're talking about. So the January 6th versus BLM stuff.
We're just using it for
Don't
foundation.
worry, I was
Wick.
tying that in.
We're
right? I
gonna
was about
keep
to tie
going,
it
right?
in.
We're gonna keep going, but go ahead.
I wasn't gonna say anything directly about those two things, but he's like, yeah, they were both, riots that were based on lies, and I actually think, hey, that's an apt comparison, because you know what, if BLM, the worst that could happen here is we're talking about, situations where a police precinct was taken over and there were these autonomous zones, blah 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 blah. We're talking about January 6th. We're talking about the takeover of the entire government. So. That is an apt comparison, because what could happen if they succeeded was way, way worse in the case of January 6th.
And that was my whole point. Of
Same thing with Elon.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly it. Thank you. Yep.
I think the whole thing with Elon, it's not about money. I mean, I know he's got money. It's about achievements and fame. That's why Trump likes him, is because he gets shit done and because he's famous. Because he's got the eyeballs. He would have those eyeballs even if he didn't own Twitter. He had the most followers long before he bought Twitter. He would still have this influence because he got in the arena. And listen, I invested in Tesla and I was mad at Elon for getting involved in politics. But in hindsight, it kind of looks like a genius now. So I kind of take the approach of betting against Elon is not a good thing. But that's where I'm at with it.
To James and to Lactoid, right? Are you not concerned at all though with anyone, right, having the ability to basically, in a way that I don't, you don't, Katya don't, Andrew doesn't, to simply call up their senator, call up their congressman, call up the president, and say, "Hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to cut the funding."
It's like we can't all have that, right? You got to have a hierarchy, right? There's always got to be a hierarchy in society. It's like the whole Jordan Peterson thing. Whoever's at the top is going to be able to talk to who's at the top. If everybody at the bottom got to talk to everybody at the top, nothing would get done, because then all you'd be doing all day long is listening to people. So the only way you get to talk to people up there is by achieving. You got to achieve something to get up there. You don't just get to be any Joe Schmo off the street.
Centralization of powers, one person in charge of America, dictatorship.
Yeah, I still want a democracy. I still want checks and balances. Right. So I still want the branches to check each other.
What balance is there on Elon? What check against Elon exists right now?
Fewer pages, right? Fewer pages. That's it. That's the check and balance.
Hold on, no.
That's literally all I got too.
Hold on. This is to Lactoid and James. What checks against Elon? We can't vote Elon out.
He can't sign anything.
No one voted him in either.
Because he's a private citizen, right? He's out there saying his mind. Like, what do we do when somebody? It's like, to me, the same question. Like, what do we do when a whole bunch of people who make up a strong voting demographic want something dumb? What do we do about that? It's like, yeah, dude. You don't agree with the outcome here, and I understand, but here you have a situation where a private citizen is doing something that they're well within their rights to do. They're going out and they're speaking their mind. They're saying, this is bullshit. Here's what I want. I happen to agree with a lot of the things that Elon Musk is advocating for, but ultimately this is why I called it sour grapes before. I think the only reason that this newfound word of oligarch is being attached to him is because people don't like things that are the left doesn't like the things that Elon Musk is advocating for, and they're perfectly fine taking a bunch of money beforehand. I mean, you look at the difference between spending between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's not even close.
It
the
is
campaign?
because of the way
Or are you
that
talking about while
campaign
he's
finance
president?
works when people are donating through certain types of PACs and how campaign finance directly, works. It was
It's
closer than
Elon
you think.
donated to a super PAC.
the behind the
Okay.
scenes money.
Okay.
And
No,
that's
no,
not
no, 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 no,
counted.
no. You have
That's
to
not counted.
when you're donating money like that much, like it has to go to a super PAC. And by the way, like there's plenty of other PACs, super PACs that are on the left wing, right?
Cool. I want to
One in
respond to Nexus
particular that I'm
really
thinking of. I don't know.
That's really awesome.
George Soros.
I want to
Nah, that
respond
wasn't who I was
to
thinking of, but go ahead.
Nexus.
It was
I
a
wanna
shot at
respond to
progressive
Nexus in
victory.
regards
But
to-
yeah, I get you. Go ahead, keep going.
in regards to
Which is
talking about
fine.
that there has
sorry.
to be a hierarchy and stuff like that, and obviously people who are higher up are going to have the ear of people who are higher up. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But in our system of government, right, the way that you get up there, and especially in our government,
Well,
to
in
be able to
government,
talk to those people at the top is by being elected. And
Of course.
when you're elected, you answer to your constituents and not Elon Musk. So the
And
point
Elon
is that
said,
he's
"Hey,
more
constituents, call
stepping
your
on the
representatives."
toes.
He told us,
He
he
did
told them,
not
call your
just-
representatives, and they did. And then the representatives listened to him. They said,
If
"Hey,
he just said
go
call
call your senators and
representatives,
say,
it'd be
don't vote for
different.
this shit." So that's how he got them to
Right,
kill
he's
it.
done way beyond that. Okay, it's not
he-
just
What?
that
Hold
we're
on,
top-
just
we're talking
Katya,
about
can you be
fire.
more clear when you say he's done way beyond that? Can you elaborate?
We're talking about he is calling for people to be primaried. He's talking about these thinly veiled suggestions that if people they don't go along with this, they are their continuation in office is threatened. We're talking about these types of influences directly to the ear of the president as somebody who has contributed so much to him, in the way that just being up there and having the ear of somebody, it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
To
Politics
don't
is
know
a
why
party
we're-
game. I hear you.
And also, why are we not separating, or why are we putting together like regular people with Elon Musk? Like you've brought the comparison to me. I guess I'm talking. What's your name one more time again? Red shirt.
James?
Oh, red.
Lactoid.
Lactoid. I'm sorry. I had lacked in my head, but it was lactoid.
Okay.
It's not like a private citizen freedom of speech argument. Elon Musk is the richest man in the entire world, and he's taken direct actions to influence the U.S. government and our electoral processes. That is the principle. It's not because he's arguing against things that I might disagree with. Some things I might even agree with that he's talking about. His actions and his words are directly affecting the government processes, and that is the principle of what my argument is. It's not a freedom of speech thing. Sure, even like for
He's
example,
rich,
like
but he's a
Trump,
private citizen.
but he's also getting a position in the government. Though Trump is straight up said he's going to have a position in the government with this DOGE thing. I'm like repeating myself because that is.
By the way, so it's a little bit
foundation of my
unclear whether or not
argument.
DOGE is the government, but if he was getting a position in the government, doesn't like make it more justified that he'd be like speaking out against like government bureaucracy?
Maybe after he's approved by Congress,
DOGE.
We vote him in. Like,
Well,
let's talk
then he
about
can then he can do it as a private citizen. So you're caught in a catch-22.
vote
It's
in
like,
your chief of
like
staff,
he's going to be a
do you?
government official, like being part of DOGE. Well, DOGE is about cutting down on government waste, right? Isn't that his goal? Well, but he's not part of DOGE yet. Well, then he's a private citizen, and he
He's
has the
buying
right
his
to
way
speak out.
in. What do you think about that? What do you think about buying an office? Is that like buying a cabinet position? Is that something that like Congress should vote on? Maybe.
So
They do
I
vote on
understand, like
cabinet
if
positions.
you look at like the proportion of like millionaires and billionaires in like politics, I understand it's like significantly high because these people again are able to like
Is that
advertise.
anything to compare against someone who has $1/3 of $1 trillion?
Again, it is directly comparable. You can talk about the fact that he's rich.
It's a number.
I can point
It
out
is a
other rich
number.
people. Mark Cuban's a billionaire.
It's more than I make. That's true. That is
Mark
absolutely
Cuban has
true.
more money than I'll ever have.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all the same. All same. Trillion to $1 million. All the same.
Testicle Johnson for 20 Canadian dollars. Okay, it's Christmas, so I'll allow it, right? It says this: Elon Musk paid a flight attendant $250,000 to settle a sexual misconduct suit in 2018. Richest man in the world can't fork over a few million? Question mark! Exclamation point! Question mark!
He's good at deals.
Loser.
Oh. That's just
part
that's
of the
just
deal.
lawyer bullshit.
Okay, but
That's
thank
just lawyer
you
bullshit.
for the $20. This is to Andrew and to Katusha and to Carl. Okay, so you've identified you don't like what Elon's doing. What do you propose we do about it?
This is a tougher thing. It would have to be solved via legislation in Congress or public outcry.
Give us an idea. Well, you don't like it, right? So what do you want to happen?
I've been against the Citizens United ruling since 2010. I know that Bernie Sanders and the DSA have campaigned against, in favor of overturning Citizens United and the idea of pushing back in general on the amount of money that's going into politics. We had $2.6 billion of private money in politics in 2024. That's more than double what the campaigns themselves raised. It is enormous. And so, yeah, we need to be able to rein that in. We've got wonderful programs in Seattle called democracy vouchers, where individuals can allocate, no matter how much they make, they can allocate $50 to a campaign just by signing their name to it. Stuff like this is progress. This is going to take a long time. There's long road of electoral reform ahead of us to make sure that we unseat the powerful who have a place in politics.
I'll give you one quick one. Is the fairness doctrine? Have you heard of the fairness doctrine? Bring that back. Bring that back. Get rid of Citizens United. Sure, yeah, go for it.
James,
you would have to amend the First Amendment, just to be clear.
Okay, James, you are the most open-minded guy I've ever met, right? Like, we could just get rid of the Citizens United, bring back fairness doctrine. But yeah, I voted for Harris, but I like Musk too, and I like Trump.
Yeah,
they're all pretty
pragmatic.
good, right?
I know.
Look, hey,
He's
look, we love you right here.
This is a normal guy who showed up to a debate panel full of psychos like us. It's crazy.
$5 from another new account.
Trust me, I'm not normal.
Did any of these guys complain about Musk say a word when Bloomberg spent over $2 billion last time?
Ooh.
Bloomberg apparently, I need to hold on. I'm going to hold that thought.
They don't even know.
Check. No.
Yeah,
I have a point.
Maybe because of how irrelevant it is.
I don't want to say it because I don't want to be incorrect here.
Also, Musk is defense contracted. Why are we calling him a private citizen? Well, he's literally got defense contracts and major companies that contribute to like Tesla and SpaceX and go into this outer space. Why are we even comparing him to private citizenship? I have no idea why we're doing that.
Because he's a private citizen.
Bloomberg.
So private citizens get defense contracts?
If you can have private citizens who own shares of companies. I bought shares of maybe I own part of Northrop Grumman or whatever. That doesn't mean that I all of a sudden can't blast Kamala Harris on my Facebook.
Wait, Bloomberg was running for president. He was like, Musk should run for president. Yes, please do it.
No, then he uses money there, and you guys would be like, these oligarchs, they're buying elections.
Because he's running for president.
We get to vote against the
You
oligarchs.
did get to vote against it. And by the way, I'm pretty sure everybody in this panel, except for me, probably did vote against it.
Against Bloomberg?
No, against Trump. Did Elon make his fucking allegiance a secret? Did we not know that he was supporting Donald Trump? And all five of you voted against him.
Okay, let me ask you this, Lactoid. Say you had Zelensky.
I didn't though.
Okay, you have Zelensky, and you find out that Zelensky's pouring billions of dollars into a let's say Biden's campaign, right? Mm-hmm. And does that not give you pause, right, about Zelensky, a foreign entity's influence over our government?
That if we're talking a non-American citizen who's the head of state of a different country,
Musk, or he's not a private citizen, state, right? But he is he's someone who is not American, not a U.S. Not born in the U.S., not a native citizen.
Is he a citizen? Hold on.
I don't know.
He is now.
He is now. Fair enough. But again, say someone,
Bernard Arnault is more wealthy than Musk at some points of the year, depending on when you measure. What if he did it? He's richer than Musk. He's going to bring back Al Gore or some shit, and he's going to win.
Okay. Hold on. I'll you have to repeat that thing because I just looked it up. Elon Musk apparently is a citizen. So he's a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil. Of course, he has the rights of freedom of speech. Under funding PACs under Citizens United.
People are talking about running.
If we're talking about a foreign head of state, sending secret money to a specific candidate, Like I would be more uncomfortable with that, because now we don't have the same kind of constitutional protections that exist that protect Elon Musk here. And I mean, it's a foreign head of state. I mean, we're talking about something very like this person's no longer a private citizen. But anyway, what was the comparison?
So Bloomberg,
It was a
people brought
richer
up
dude.
Bloomberg like 3 times.
Yeah, richer. At some point, I'm sure Soros was richer than Elon.
No. Bernard Arnault is, depending on the time of the year, richer than Musk. And so, yeah, that would be my comparison, is a dude from France who's richer than Musk on any given day, promoting, I don't know who, Howard Dean, let's say, and he takes over the government next time. What are you saying?
Is he a U.S. citizen?
Oh, no.
Well, no,
he's
let me
not.
ask, what does okay, so if the principle here is freedom of speech, do you think people who are non-U.S. citizens should have freedom of speech?
So this is really difficult. I think that if U.S. citizens are on U.S. soil, that's the easiest example, right? This person obviously has like First Amendment protections. If we're talking about a non-U.S. citizen not in the U.S., like constitutionally speaking, no, they don't have those protections. If like this guy from France flew to the U.S. and then was on U.S. soil, I think he would have freedom of speech.
But your whole argument tonight has been from a morality perspective as well, right? Not just the legality of it, but the morality, as you said earlier, right? We're here to debate the morality of it. The morality is that a private citizen, someone who wants to give their money to a thing, should be allowed to do that. That's why we have the law. You agree with the law, right? The Citizens United decision, etc., right? So again, I'm asking, why is it that it's different to you when it's a non-citizen doing this?
So in the back of, because I'm trying to like balance this between like the espionage, we're talking about like the foreign espionage, because like I want people like who are like in good faith, like genuinely hold these positions. Like, hey, I think this is like a really good thing, a really bad thing, etc. What I don't want is like Xi Jinping to like say, okay, here's how we're gonna do this, right? And then do like some kind of weird fucking
You don't
tenant
think Xi
media shit.
Jinping could send a bunch of money to a private U.S. citizen, and then that private U.S. citizen can do the same thing that Elon's doing? You don't think that is a possible thing that could happen?
If somebody made money in China and then brought it over. Yeah, I get like again. So this is why I said it from the very beginning. Like this is difficult. Again, my goal here is to make sure that like U.S. citizens can express themselves, right? Or people in America like can express themselves. That's my goal. And so if you have a situation where like, my idea is like, is this
say you had
a genuine belief
Russian
or not?
government oligarchs giving, I don't know, a few $100,000 to American podcasters? Okay, say that was a thing that was.
I said Tenant Media, by the way. I brought that up.
Just pretend it was.
By the way, wasn't the only problem with that is that they didn't disclose the money, if I'm not mistaken? Am I wrong on that?
I don't know if that was the only problem, but that was what made it a violation of the law.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking at this from a moral perspective now, right? Fair enough.
I mean, that could be the issue I have, because I said, I think at the very beginning, I said like I think my main issues perhaps is when it's kind of under the table and not very transparent. If somebody wants to say in the U.S. like, hey, I'm getting a bunch of money from this group of like concerned Russian citizens to advocate for the policies of Russia or whatever, and they like make that clear, and then they go on to do it, I'm probably okay with that.
I just think it's going beyond advocacy and more action. Elon's taking direct actions more so than just saying, hey guys, I have these ideas. Do you share these ideas with me? No, he's like, we're going to literally remove politicians and we're going to make sure it happens. But also, again,
through
Trump
advocacy.
takes up.
Yeah,
He's
not doing it through force.
What world are we living in?
He's not showing up with a gun. He's saying, I'm going to advocate against you.
So you need to show up with a gun. You have to have a firearm or like a means to kill someone.
How else are you going to remove them? You're going to get people to vote against them. How are you going to get people to vote against them? You're going to advocate for it. I mean, it's not like he just gets to say, hey, you don't get elected, and everybody's like, okay.
So then just to be clear, if there's a
hold on, give it to Andrew. Let Andrew finish.
1 second. So if say George Soros then is like, I'm gonna revenge for this. Like I'm actually gonna go out there and all the positions Elon's doing, but for the left. And he just straight up says, let's start primarying Democrat politicians, which maybe you might be okay with, whatever. But or maybe just the direct fear that I've experienced myself, but also seen like from the right about George Soros. If he is doing the very thing that Elon Musk is doing, you're saying that it'd be fine, it'd be okay, no problem,
Competition.
Yeah.
no issues.
I just view it as
And
competition.
keep in mind, like this happened, like APAC did this,
Competition,
I think
right.
in New York. Didn't APAC literally do this in New York, like this last election cycle? Pretty sure APAC like cut or like heavily funded. I forget who it was. Wick, do you remember that? Who was the politician who spoke out against Israel? And then APAC basically funded their opponent.
Jamal Bowman.
Jamal Bowman,
the
that's
fire
right.
alarm guy.
Yeah, the fire alarm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he got APAC basically just like started funding his opponent because he had anti-Israeli positions, and of course, a pro-Israeli lobby is going to want to advocate against candidates pushing a anti-Israel position. Of course.
Yep.
Now is that not advocacy or is that like direct action? I mean, what's the difference here? I'm confused.
It is money, and that's where money and speech are different, and that's why I have the position that I have, is that you should be able to have your speech, and having 10 times or 100 times or 1 million or 1 billion times as much money as I do does not give you more speech.
If I want to hold on, let me just ask this. So if I want to buy a billboard that has my political views on it, I mean, I have to use money, right? Is this speech?
It depends on the rules of the person you're renting it from, and like I think that different constituencies should be able to, as James suggested, have a fairness doctrine. So if you put up a billboard, I get to put up one right next to it with the contrary political position.
So hold on, it costs money to put up a billboard. Who gets to pay for your billboard?
Well, I think that's best left up to individual constituencies. If they're going to allow for political advertising,
Carl,
we could have a fairness doctrine.
Does this apply to things like streamers? So if I wanted to do a stream where I was rah for Harris, okay, which I've done, right? Should I be required to bring on someone?
Enforce a fairness doctrine on Destiny. I would love to see it.
That would be amazing if like all networks had to give equal time. I think we would see a whole lot of like really far right accounts.
Why do you need
boosted
you don't need the
in
fairness
the algorithm
doctrine for that, right? Because Destiny's going to be coming on my show soon.
You would be politically new
to talk about the Luigi stuff. I'm going to advertise that real quick. So we don't have a specific date yet, but Destiny is going to be arguing with pro Luigi goons soon on my channel.
You could be exempt if you can be neutral and you can show us how it's done. That would be amazing.
Okay.
I think for the fairness doctrine, there has to be a sense of scale, right? So every billboard, maybe not, but if you got 100 million viewers, yeah, like there's some line in between there. Drawing that line.
Can you give us a specific
is the hard
line?
part.
Like how much?
What about Hassan?
This is
Is
to
he big
Carl.
enough?
This is to everyone who is
Right.
pro fairness doctrine, pro getting money out of politics. At what point? What's the income that I have to make before I'm subject to these rules?
It's what you do with it, to be clear. Like if we're talking public airwaves, we're talking major distributed media that the U.S. can regulate. That's where it ends up being a problem. That's not a dollar amount. Sorry.
That's fine.
I'm not gonna have a dollar amount either.
Yeah, and in relation to this, this kind of, I can tie it back to something I was going to say earlier, but I didn't want to say it until I double checked, which were people had brought up multiple times in this conversation, either here or people who were doing super chats. They brought up Bloomberg, for example, somebody who ran for president and owned a news media situation, owned a magazine, bought that. For example, I mean, he specifically, number one, refused donations, but also had his news company not cover his campaign. The difference here is if somebody is using their influence in a certain way. He didn't use his influence to be like the 24/7 Bloomberg Dick Suck show, on his magazine, his news outlet. Yet literally, like, if you went on like the Discover page on Twitter right before the election, it'd be like the Save America, Donald Trump. Whoa, we love Donald Trump. We are constantly in it for him,
Also,
type
keep in
situation.
mind,
I think this
at
is going to be a
least-
losing argument with them because what they're saying is that's fair, and the Democrats or people on the left need to buy a platform and try to buy elections just like the right wing does, and that's the argument. Is that it's competition. He just said it to me earlier. It's competition. They outbought the election. They bought it. They have a richer person, so that way the left needs to come up with a rich person and buy the election for the Democrats. That's the argument I'm getting from this.
I just want to point out that like Bloomberg not covering Michael Bloomberg could be seen as influence as well, because a lot of the press coverage of him was relatively negative. And the fact that Bloomberg wasn't covering him negative is, perhaps that's like some level of influencing the campaign as well, or influencing
That's a little-
Americans.
He owned it. He could have
that's a little
influenced himself
ridiculous.
by being
And-
only cover him positive. Why would he have to cover
$5.
him negative?
Well, I mean, first of all, that'd be like, I think, very difficult to hide.
$5,
But second of all,
just real quick,
I mean-
$5 from another new account to say, Hack Guy says he's irrelevant while Bloomberg openly bragged about buying elections. I bought / I got them. Thank you for the quote. Thank you for the $5. Continue, Lactoid. I'm sorry.
I mean, we're talking about one specific election. Like, let's not pretend that Bloomberg doesn't have a slant that like happens to be somewhat in line with Michael Bloomberg's politics. This happens to be the case. You
Beyond
own
a
large
slant,
pieces of
though.
media.
Bloomberg said that he bought members of Congress, that he got them elected.
Oh,
And that's different from his election because, of course, he failed. He failed to get elected.
but hold on. But he bought members of Congress. Aren't you guys
That's the
complaining
claim
that this?
that the donator's referencing.
Let's roll with it. Okay, let's roll with that. If that's actually true, that he said that, what would you guys think about that?
I'm not a
I'm
fan
just-
of it, but I don't think it's on the same playing field as what we're looking at here.
Do you think it's on the same playing field as like all of Hollywood?
What do you mean all of Hollywood? Because
Like all
is
of Hollywood,
all
the
of
people that went on
talking to
campaign
the
with
president?
Kamala. Yeah, well, hold on. Same thing with Hillary
Careful
Clinton. Same
now,
thing with Joe
'cause-
Biden. I mean,
'cause
Taylor
you know
Swift.
Who runs you know who
what about-
runs Hollywood? Careful.
Yeah, the libs. The libs run Hollywood. And if we
George
want to talk
Soros runs
about,
Hollywood.
it's the fucking
Yeah.
libs. Okay,
The
look,
LQ. No,
no, look,
liberal question.
anti-Semitism. That's the left's thing now. Okay, you guys can have that. I'm just blaming it on the libs.
Y'all,
you know,
never,
Taylor
y'all are never going to
Swift-
give it away fully.
Taylor Swift. I mean, is that like interference? She came out and endorsed Kamala Harris.
So endorsing people is a bit different, right? Than afterwards having influence of who's in government, what gets passed, and what the president does, to the point of trying to create entire new government agencies. Okay, if Kamala won and all of a sudden there's Taylor Swift's department of what she likes should be in the government, and she's gonna like head that, then that would be completely different than we're talking about.
No, it
saying
wouldn't
who
be.
somebody should vote for.
Endorsing is, you said like endorsing is different than like influencing who's going to be in the government. Actually, endorsing is directly like influencing who's going to be in the government. You're Taylor Swift, you have a lot of reach. You're saying, hey, you
problem
should
is-
vote for this person.
Do we
to
get to
this
vote
person.
on Doge? When is that happening?
No, we do, because Trump said it
Did?
before his fucking before the election day.
No,
He
but the
advocated for
problem-
this.
The
You guys
problem
did
is
get to vote on Doge, and you
if-
lost.
if Taylor Swift like endorsed Harris and then became the head of the FAA and exempted private planes from emissions or whatever, and like, yes, we would have a problem with that. Obviously, we
What
like,
if she had a
yes, we
thing
can
for
engage.
aviation?
Yeah, that's called influence peddling, and yes, it's wrong. It's easy.
She influenced by endorsing. If Taylor Swift wanted to come, Taylor
endorsements
Swift,
are not influenced.
But what did you,
Yeah,
Craig Bono?
obfuscated.
What
She
is
did
it then? Why do you endorse somebody if you don't want to influence the trajectory of the election? What's the purpose?
Well, you want to influence it because it's the right thing, not because they're going to make you the head of the FAA.
Oh, it's the right thing because like it's what
In
your
Taylor Swift's
political
opinion,
Because
beliefs,
it's
what your own
ideology
political.
instead of
Yeah.
what you're gonna
Mhm.
get.
Well,
There's a
Elon-
difference between what you're gonna get.
Elon is
versus-
talking about the things that he wants to get, like
And
not in
he's
terms of
going
his
to
personal
continue
thing.
to get
No,
He's
not in
going
terms
to
of his.
get paid.
Stop.
That's what he's going
Not
to get.
stop. Not in terms of his personal shit. In terms of the things he wants to get done. How has he personally profited by the recent shit going on with the spending bill?
His
Yet to be
contracts,
determined.
Tesla. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Really? Well, hold on. The contracts with Tesla, like that was added to the new bill.
Sorry,
No,
SpaceX.
not yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it will.
SpaceX, the contracts were added to the new bill that got passed as opposed to the old bill? You guys are saying that he's just in it for himself, but like this seems to
Yes.
be an actual like a political position, much like Taylor Swift thinking that Kamala Harris is going to be better than Donald Trump, and so she endorses her. And now Elon is saying, I really, really endorse this smaller bill, and so please go vote for it. And if you don't, then I'm going to advocate against you next primary.
How much are you going to bet? Are you going to bet that Musk will not benefit from this? Because his stocks went up. He has become once again the wealthiest man because his influence has got a market reaction.
I will speak here.
For $70 billion.
Go ahead, James, please.
He definitely benefits. Here's how he benefits: FSD regulations. He's going to benefit there. The stocks, NASA contracts. He is definitely going to benefit from this. So I'm aware of that. I don't think this particular spending bill he's benefiting from that. This particular CR.
So he's trying to kill it.
Yeah, but I think here's what he's really doing is I think he's actually like stepping up to make the country a better place, and that's what I see a lot of these
just real quick.
billionaire people doing.
I'm being told to answer your question, Lactwit, and I haven't confirmed this, but this is what I'm being told, so I'm going to pass it on. That one of the things that was taken out of the spending bill was funding for competitors to Tesla, his EV competitors, electrical vehicle competitors, and that was removed from the spending bill.
I'll need to see it. Was it like spent like?
Can you link me? No, Cal Mike. Can you link me?
Yeah.
That,
was
please?
It funds for like the general industry, or was it like specifically like here are Elon's competitors? We were going to give them free money, which I guess I have a problem with facially. Like
once I
the government shouldn't be involved in like handing out money to companies.
I'll give you the details once I get it. But again, in principle, though, right? The idea that that he can advocate for these kinds of changes, right? Again, should that not give you pause?
Hold on. If we're talking, and I think I told you this when you asked me my position on this. If you have a situation where somebody's advocating for a position not because it's part of some kind of actual politically held position, right? Like Taylor Swift advocating for Kamala Harris because she thinks she's best for the country, that's fine. But if like Elon Musk is like, hey, I specifically want Tesla to have to be immune from any lawsuits, specifically Tesla, I have a problem with that. For sure. If we're talking like, if it's like bold-faced like favoritism towards like a very specific thing that Elon Musk controls, I would like, I don't know how you stop it, but I would be like I'd be outspoken against that. But so far what I've seen is Elon Musk coming out and saying, hey, spending is bad, big government's bad, et cetera, all the good shit. And so, yeah, of course he should be allowed to advocate for that shit.
What if it happens that like there's lawsuits about FSD and about injuries from FSD as a industry in general? Is this like, is Musk advocating to make FSD lawsuits like limited or reform in tort? Is that him benefiting directly, or is that quote unquote the right thing?
It's difficult because arguably like you can advocate for a bunch of good shit that will have some kind of tangential impact on you, right? Like I advocate for, because I think taxes are theft, I advocate for lower taxes. Now, I happen to be part of a tax-paying class in America, so does that somewhat benefit me financially? Probably, right? And I'm sure Elon Musk advocating for less taxes, that probably benefit him to some degree. But there also is like a valid philosophical principle of like taxes are bad. Here's why we advocate against taxes. That's why for me, like it would have to be like pretty obvious. So like some blatant favoritism towards Tesla or SpaceX or something, as opposed towards just like, hey, generally the government shouldn't be spending so much on space exploration, and this applies to all companies equally. I mean, that could be like a bona fide political position.
Get into the kind of double standards, because in certain situations we're talking about where it would have to be extremely obvious when we're talking about this direction, but when we're talking about stuff like on the other side, things can be extremely convoluted, or this money went to this person, went to this person, went to this person, but I know exactly what this is and I know it's corrupt. It's like, what world? Like, these are two different worlds, right?
No, my position would be the same for, if George Soros, for example, like went out and advocated for, I don't know, some kind of like general policy that he like principally holds that just happens to benefit him, that like, I'm fine with that. I mean, you have the execs of oil companies, they come out and say like, climate change is false. There's some people who believe that. I don't believe that.
I think we're getting away from like Elon Musk killing a bill and talking about removing politicians from the government to supporting, again, progressive or non-progressive ideas or culture war ideas or whatever. Like that's completely separate from Elon Musk influencing the government directly. Still,
Again,
back to my
we're
foundational point.
kind of cycling a little bit because when
I
you
know
say like
that's my
influencing,
foundational point.
no, I know. When you say like influencing directly, you're just talking about, hey, here's a rich guy who's
Just
like advocating
quick,
against
Carl,
certain action.
Carl, thank you for the gift subs. You had to go or something?
Yeah, I've
So
got to
give
go.
us-
So I'm gifting to apologize. I'm gonna cut off the lulls. All personality is leaving the room right now. All the sexiness is gone. Sorry, folks. I gotta go. It was great talking to you all.
Nice to meet
See
you,
you,
Carl.
buddy.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Take care.
Catch you later, man.
Econo Boy, if you're still in chat and you want to jump on to replace him, by all means, just jump backstage. But yeah, I guess like my my issue here is I have an Ellen. You're not going to take his place. Okay, my issue I have with Lactoid's position is I think while I agree in principle that everyone has freedom of speech, everyone should be able to advocate for whoever or whatever they like. I do think that it is wise to have some concerns, right, about Elon being as close to Trump as he is. And I think that it is something that we should keep an eye on. We should not want in our government. And I think that we should vote against it next time we get a chance. Where I have an issue with Andrew and Katya's position here is that I don't think we can do anything about this or should do anything about this legislatively. I think this is simply a matter of the cure will be worse than the disease. I can't think of a method to stop him doing what he's doing that wouldn't impact me and impact those like me, and that's a problem to me. So.
Well, like you said, it's competition. So the left just needs to find a billionaire willing to fund the Democrat election completely, and then also be the right-hand man or the woman to the Democratic candidate for president, and then be like the Lord of the Rings character, like Worm Tongue, like Elon Musk is, or Trump is to Elon. Apparently, I don't know who it is these days. I don't know who's the president, who's the vice president, but it seems like somebody on the left needs to do that, and then then Wick, you can have the same debate, and I bet you will have completely different actions or reactions from Lactoid and others. Like, this is so wrong. This is evil. This is the evil, corrupt Democrats. But it's in competition though, so apparently that's the only way we can do it.
Okay.
And to be clear, I never said that it was like
don't
what I
support that, though.
wanted for things to be really regulated in Congress. I said, because I remembered you had asked like what could be done, and I said, well, I mean, either public pressure or stuff would have to happen in Congress. Not to say that I was specifically like advocating for that to happen.
I get you.
Just to
I understand.
And I don't support what I said either, Wick. That's just the way that I see as the results.
All good. Econo Boy, you have some thoughts and you wanted to get on this. You wrote an article on this recently. I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's great. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bizarre coincidence. I did start a Substack, and I wrote an article basically about this topic.
It's almost as if
I
it's a common thing that people are concerned with, right? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was topical,
Yep.
so I guess just a double coincidence of topicalness, I guess. But no, I actually agree with Lactoid. I think that in some senses, money is speech, but that's kind of the problem with it, right? Is that some people have a lot more money than others, right? And so I don't think that some people should have more of an ability to basically express their speech just because they have more money. And I think that general view kind of underlies a lot of my thoughts about this. Billionaires in politics and media are just all bad, essentially. And I think that if we care about democracy and democratic structures, that obviously you need to engage in kind of a more radical egalitarianism when it comes to how we organize the media and how we organize politics. Because without doing that, obviously, we end up with a very skewed democratic framework, which is probably bad, again, if you care about those frameworks.
Right. I tend to agree with you. I think the biggest problem is figuring out how like to get this done or to enact that change, because obviously legislation isn't going to work as intended when we're talking about, groups that can just do kind of background money and stuff like that. I think that like public pressure is kind of like among the better vectors that we have, and having it so people like trying to create an environment where people don't have an appetite to see that on any situation.
I agree. It's kind of like forming a populism. So I don't want to sorry, like I said, Wick, I don't support like funding left-wing, billionaire to do what Elon's doing. I would, like you said, I don't know if there is a legislative pathway there. It would just run into problems on its own, like you said, but it'd have to be like a populism, I feel, of like people supporting not what Elon's doing and like using their freedom of speech on social media to speak out against it, or, maybe attend rallies of Democrats or not even Democrats or whoever the opposing majority party will be against Trump, to speak out against it. And that's probably the best thing we can do right now.
Oh,
I
hold
mean, right
on.
now, obviously, but
Yeah.
What is maybe you answered
Well,
this
more-
in your article here, kind of boy,
Yeah.
but like what's the dollar amount here? Before we have some radical egalitarian kind of restructuring. You mentioned how billionaires are bad. What about millionaires?
well, I'm not really talking about like getting rid of billionaires or anything like that. I'm just talking about our political system itself should probably not have differing levels of platform based on how wealthy you are. So it's kind of it's not really a statement on the accumulation of wealth broadly. It's more so a statement on just what you can do with that wealth and how we should organize basically the avenues by which people can funnel their wealth. And so I would say that within the political ecosystem, the money that goes into the political ecosystem should be as horizontally distributed as possible. Soyadel talked about, and I actually referenced it in my article coincidentally, that Seattle does democracy vouchers, and democracy vouchers are probably the best way to go about this. Basically, just say, hey, any money that you use to run a federal campaign, it has to come from democracy vouchers. Democracy vouchers, whatever, everyone gets $100 a year, however much the money you think people should get, and they can allocate that to federal campaigns as they see fit. And that's just a much more equal sort of egalitarian way to distribute political influence
It's
versus like one billionaire being able to just, buy their own media company
Hold on.
or,
How do
spread
you
their own
protect
propaganda.
minorities from being just shut out in that case? So if everyone got $100 equally across the board, those poor trans people are going to be shit out of luck because all of a sudden 99% of the money is being distributed towards campaigns because of what a cis person thinks. So how do
Right now,
we stop that from being an issue?
well, I mean, right now, at least like people of color and trans people are disproportionately lower income and probably have less of an ability to actually participate money wise in politics. And so my system would probably propel their voices more so than otherwise. I mean, that would be my thing. I mean, I also believe in constitutional frameworks for protecting minority rights. I mean, we're really just talking about like political money spending. So it's not really a statement on like how minority rights should be protected or, a broader
Sure,
like
but
how
if
we
the
should vote
spending
or
if spending if your political candidates are given money based on the spending and the spending is allocated based on demographics, then obviously some demographics are going to have less of a say, some demographics are going to have more of a
yeah,
say.
that's
Well, I
Right?
mean, but that's almost like a statement on like, well, why should if we give everyone just one vote, doesn't that mean trans people are less represented, because 99% of people are cis and they have one vote? I mean, in some senses there's just going to be some majorities in society, right? But it's a matter of the question really is just like, is it better to have highly unequal distribution of money in politics or highly equal distribution money in politics? And certainly it would be the case that to the extent that trans people are not protected in our system, either because of demographic preference, political structures, like political motivations, that's not really something to speak against like that fundamental question. It's just better to have a more egalitarian distribution of money in politics. At least if you ask me. I mean, obviously there might be some esoteric arguments otherwise, but
Speaking of esoteric arguments, otherwise, do you have any thoughts on this, Lactoid?
I mean,
I've
go
got
ahead.
s-
But here's the thing. I mean, Econoboy comes in here and he presents like I disagree with it for like a number of base level principles, but he said from the very beginning, like money is speech. Like in the same way, who are you to tell me that I can't spend my money on a billboard or that I can't spend my money getting a car wrap that has Trump on it, right? I mean, that's what the streamers did, right? XQC and those people. And who are you to tell me that I can't buy a Trump hat and walk around? Who are you to tell me that I can't drive, let's say, to Ohio and organize a bunch of people to go there and campaign, right? That takes money. Or all the other shit that like is political that takes money, right? Paying for the gas, paying for the cars, paying for the organization, paying for everything. All of that takes money. And for me, it's like a personal freedom thing. Like, who are you to tell me that I can't spend my money on that? Who are you to tell me that I can't get with an organization and make a movie like, Michael Moore does, for example. I think that if you want to like really start like hitting people with a fuck ton of money can't like have political influence anymore, trying to cut down on that, you're running into like a whole fucking like a lot of issues.
No,
How
but
do you
this is
prevent
Yeah,
Hollywood
so
funding, or sorry,
this
how
is what
Hollywood
so
movies that have like a certain political slant?
this
are
is
they
what
going to have?
Lactoid
Go ahead.
and this is what broader libertarians just like totally fail to do when they like analyze what rights we should have and how rights intersect with each other. They assume there's like no intersection of rights at all, right? If billionaires have an incredibly outsized influence to enact their free speech, that affects the political advocacy and your own ability to speak. Obviously, like libertarians wouldn't have a problem talking about like the crowding out of private investment from public investment because, that's a dynamic thing and maybe public investment versus private investment has different social values or whatever. And similarly, if we have a scenario where like billionaire money is incredibly outsized in influence, and in some senses billionaires have a louder voice, that forces everyone else to yell much more loudly in order to have their voice heard in society. And so obviously these systems are complex, and the exact regulations on like how spending works and all these things are definitely complicated questions. But what I can tell you is that almost every other country in the world, in the OECD, like wealthy democratic countries, have much, much more stringent limitations on money in politics. They have shorter campaign seasons, more limitations on money and private money in politics in general. They just see overall substantially less spending on money in politics. And to Wick's point, we don't see like minority rights in these countries being incredibly trampled upon. If anything, it's the opposite. We don't see people feel like, oh, they have this fundamental lack of an ability to spread a political message. We
They don't have
see
the First
that in those
Amendment.
countries. Well, I agree,
have
but you
less
have
money, too.
you have a radically different interpretation of the First Amendment than I do.
But my interpretation is along with the Supreme Court, right? Which
yeah,
is according
I
to Citizens
understand.
United.
I
we're gonna do that.
understand that you agree with the right wing Supreme Court. I'm saying I disagree with the right wing Supreme Court. I mean, that's again, I think that there's a way to
It
balance.
wasn't
these
even
rights
right wing
out.
at the time, though, when that Citizens United happened. It was
The 5-4
Yeah.
right wing Supreme Court. Over, they did the Citizens United decision. So I mean,
that
it was a
was
right
back
wing
before Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was still
It was
when
a
it was
5-4 right wing Supreme Court,
Already.
right? And so I mean, I just like that's the issue here is that libertarians like to point, and this is the last thing I'll say. Libertarians like to point at like, isn't it just so practically impossible to do this? What about all these other things that might happen? And it's like, well, I can point to like hundreds of other examples of regulations in countries where the end result is people have a robust freedom of speech in their country, but they just don't have radically large amounts of spending and outsized billionaire influence in their politics. And that seems like a good combination of things.
Just to be clear, I'm pretty sure the Citizens United Court was the same court that decided Obergefell, which is what
Right.
legalized gay marriage.
It was
Like
So I think the reason
Ginsburg's on
why,
the side of it. So
yeah, I think
it
the
was
reason, I think
five
the
conservatives, four
hold on.
liberals.
yeah, and sure, conservatives, right? Sure.
So that-
I
no
think
true
when it comes
conservative.
to when
Yeah,
it comes
like,
to
what are we talking
No true.
no. So the whole problem is that like judicial philosophies don't map on with political ideologies one to one. There is like and we can, this is a whole nother fucking rabbit hole, Wick, which is why I'm not going to go down this.
Okay, thank you.
But that's why I was putting it in air quotes. But like the Citizens United case is very rational from a First Amendment perspective, because again, the First Amendment is a constitutional right granted to U.S. citizens to express themselves. And going back to like the thing I was going through, which is again, yeah, it's a libertarian thing, but it's also a Supreme Court thing, and it's also a most American thing when it comes to supporting the First Amendment and its logical implications. Which is that if you're going to say Michael Moore, you're not allowed to make movies about criticizing a specific political candidate, that's going to be a problem. And you're talking about these, the democracy, like the interest. I know that you're more interested in egalitarianism generally than I am. That's probably true. Now, your suggestion of like the democracy vouchers, where we just like hand out money to all Americans to give it to whichever political funds political campaigns that they want. I mean, you wouldn't. I don't think you would run afoul. Like you wouldn't run afoul of the same kind of First Amendment considerations if you did that. I mean, I think it'd be an exponential sum that you'd have to spend. You'd have to tax and spend. So I think that'd be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'll say, I do have to leave because we're about to start a different show. But yeah, I mean, overall though, I just think that one of the problems with libertarian philosophies in this regard and like arguments in this regard is that a libertarian. It sounds like what Lactoid would say, and obviously feel free to disagree if I'm wrong. It sounds like what Lactoid would say is that an extreme version of like an encompassing definition of First Amendment, which includes money, which I think is functionally correct. Like if I can pay money to like put up a billboard or something, but you can't, I have more of an ability to express my free speech than you do. But Lactoid, for some reason, has no problem with that in an inherent sense, right? Like, oh, like if you just have a better ability to freely express yourself than I do, because you just happen to have more money, whether it's inherited wealth or worked for wealth or whatever, Lactoid's just like, well, who gives a shit? Like, yeah, some people have different levels of constitutional rights, and I'm saying, well, that's kind of a problem for me.
Hold
Like,
on.
It's not different levels of constitutional. It's not an extreme. It's not an extreme position. The Supreme Court agrees with me. Just to be clear.
But Lactoid, hold on, really quick.
Let me ask you.
Lactoid. Well, no, because I have to ask Lactoid this. Lactoid, you think money is speech, right?
Yeah, spending money on like expressing your viewpoints is obviously speech.
If some people have more money than others, some people have more an ability to express and enact their freedom of speech than others.
Yes. Undoubtedly, people who can argue better can advocate better for themselves than people who can't. People who are more healthy, they're able to travel further distances in order to advocate.
Don't obviate the point. We can't do anything about people's health, but we can do something about the money that they spend.
Hold on, it absolutely is the case that, like, yes, not everybody has like a equal say, and this is like, yes, with money you're able to buy things, you're able to buy billboards, you're able to buy a bigger house, you're able to buy a better car. Is it fair that a richer person gets a better car?
Should we have a cap?
Yeah.
Should we have a cap on the amount of people who can watch a stream, if that's the case? The only reason people have more followers than me is because they might be better looking, right, than me, I know it's hard to believe, right? But should we put a cap on that?
To your question, to your question, Wick, like obviously there's certain, like, some people will say like, oh, like is it unfair that some people have different athletic abilities, and like, some people can play, like, if I'm not 6'10", I'm probably never going to be in the NBA. It's like, well, yeah, I guess in some sense that is unfair. Like, maybe you are a skillful basketball player, but if you're 5'7", you'll never make it to the NBA most likely. Like, I guess in some sense that is unfair, but practically speaking, what are we going to do? Cut everyone's legs off or something? That's not really what I'm describing here, though.
Harrison Bergeron, right?
What I'm talking about is money, and the way that we distribute money is a societal choice that we make, right? We make this choice. We say people are allowed to spend money on politics. People aren't allowed to spend money on politics, and societies exist between this two spectrum. What I'm saying is that
we just crashed the YouTube. Okay, I think we're back. Hold on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
The OBS is being weird. Are we back yet? Are we back? I apologize. It just no one heard you. Is unfortunately Econo Boy.
No, you're good. My fundamental point is just that the way that we distribute money in society, and like the system of money, is socially constructed. Like, we make conscious decisions in this regard. I just think that it's more just and certainly more equal, and certainly, practically speaking, results in probably a lot better outcomes and a lot more sort of salience within our politics if we have a much more equal distribution of political influence, essentially, right? I think that if we believe in democracy and one person, one vote, that we should recognize that money as speech, as Lactoid and the Supreme Court believes, necessarily means that some people have more of an ability to, because of money, spread their message in our democracy, and I think that that's wrong, right?
Sure.
It also connects to power.
We should make the choice to make that not the case.
Go ahead for Andrew.
It also connects to power. The most powerful position in the entire world is the president of the United States. And Elon Musk essentially bought his way into being the right-hand man of the president of the United States. He's meeting with foreign leaders, and he's outright dictating, like, if politicians don't support a bill, like, I'm just going to keep repeating back to my foundations because we're going all over the place with freedom of speech and all this, but it goes right back to Elon Musk's position in the government, and he has too much of it because of his pay-to-win scheme of getting into the government, and that's exactly what happened.
He met with foreign leaders, before this too. He's always had that influence.
Sure, but do you feel that buying the U.S. election as the U.S. president is okay? That's what I guess.
I don't think that's what he did. I think he just advocated for what he wanted to see. He advocated for the outcome that he thought was better.
He advocated disproportionately.
Can I ask a question to you? Can I ask a question to you, Econo Boy?
Well, like his point is like money is speech, but you can't really limit that either because it's like your athletic example. It's never going to be distributed even, right? Even if you did limit money or something, then they'll just change how they do it. They'll just start advertising "Let's go Brandon." Right?
They don't do
this
that
isn't
in other
political
countries.
speech.
Before
other countries have regulations. Other countries have regulations on money in politics, and the money in politics that's spent is radically lower than it is in this country.
And they have radically less money too. Like we have radically more money.
No.
So of course we're going to spend more here. We've got the most.
Lactoid wanted to ask. I know Econo Boy's got a limited time with us. I know he's got to go, and I want to make sure Lactoid gets his question in before he goes.
So if we're concerned about egalitarianism and like kind of what you mentioned one person, one vote. You're trying to want to kind of equalize across the distribution political power, political voice. If somebody, let's say, who's very capable of arguing and convincing other people of their viewpoint, should they get less of that like democracy fund or whatever, like the stipend that they can give to certain campaigns, and then you can give more stipend to like the people who are very poor at arguing or convincing other people their political beliefs?
You're talking about as candidates themselves, like people who can suck up more voucher dollars because they're better at convincing people.
Well, that or potentially even like the people themselves. Like I, for example, would go argue my political positions to like people I know. Now, you might not think I'm a good debater. Who knows? But let's assume that like I'm better than the average Joe. Should I get less like democracy dollars because I'm having an outsized political influence by advocating for the things that I want than perhaps somebody who is perhaps let's say somebody who's like mentally challenged or like physically disabled and they're not able to go out and advocate for the political
Should
positions they
e-girls
want.
get less?
No.
Well,
E-girls would get more, Wick. I would get less.
Why would e-girls get?
So-
but e-girls get way more followers than you. E-girls get way more attention than you. Why would
Are
they
they
get less?
convincing? Okay,
They're
hold on.
not
If they're
lawyers.
convincing people of their political ideas, maybe they should get less actually, because they're using their physical attractiveness, right, to get people on board with their political person. That's a good point, Wick. Actually, we should have an attractiveness tax.
Well, I wouldn't want to be taxed at 100%, so I would, disagree with that tax. But
Lactoid, I have a question for you.
I
Do you feel?
I do want to answer Lactoid. I'm sorry, I do want to
Okay,
answer.
you answer
your
Lactoid
question,
first, then I'll
yeah,
ask.
then-
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all that I would say is that this is just a classic. This is just a classic, and I do have to leave after this. This is just a classic anti-egalitarian argument. It's like, oh,
Dodge.
well, what about like every single potential? Well, it's not a dodge. It's just about like, oh, well, what about like every single inequality in our society, like social inequality, economic inequality in general? And I would argue that in some intrinsic sense, yes, again, like we would want some sort of strict egalitarianism in an ideal sense if we could actually practically achieve it. And yeah, like in a political system, the power of rhetoricians is probably bad. Like I think generally speaking, like we would say if somebody can convince the masses of like a bad idea that that's a bad problem, or that that's a problem in general. But in general, at the very least, when it comes to money distribution in politics, we have every ability in the world with very little sort of practical downside effect of just limiting money in politics. Again, many other countries do this. It doesn't really seem to be particularly controversial in those
decides?
countries. Who decide? Like the people do, the democratic choice. I mean, we pass laws and regulations all the time. Like libertarians say this, and it's like, what do you mean? Who decides? Like we pass laws. Like who decides that we're going to regulate water a certain way or taxes? Like we have a democratic system. Like of
Well, no,
course
and you could pass a law saying that like, hey, if you convince 2 or 3 people in the past year of your political beliefs, then like you lose 70, like you go down to 75% of the original democracy fund. You could figure out some kind of like way to empower the people
well,
who
but
can't
it's a
argue.
matter. It's a matter of how bad and how impractical a potential regulation is, right? So I would say that the ability of billionaires to buy elections is very, very bad, and the ability to regulate billionaires' ability to buy elections is actually pretty practical, right? Now, I would say that the ability to put on a more convincing argument is not that bad, but the ability to regulate that is also probably pretty hard to do, right? So there's obviously a practicality sort of significance trade-off here, and I don't think that that's much of a problem for the people who say that money in politics is a big deal. But
And just to be clear, by buy you mean spend their money to advocate for their positions to the voters.
no, I mean buy. It's pretty obvious when you buy an election or when you don't buy an election. You buy billboards and ground
no,
campaigns.
what's the
I
difference?
can't.
To like convince voters, right, of your position.
Kamala,
Again,
like
the
for example,
difference is
Kamala
that
Harris
every-
spent more. If she had won, would she have bought it?
That's bad. You're never gonna get me on one of these weird.
Did she? If she won, would you have
Would
said
she
that
have
she
said
bought
she
the
bought it?
election?
And the billionaires that supported Kamala tried to do that. They just
Okay.
failed. I'm not saying that politics and money is like this one-to-one relationship. The person who has more money always wins. There's many examples of the wealthy elite being against things and policies getting enacted anyway. I'm just saying that the disproportionate influence of the wealthy does influence our politics, right? And that influence is bad. Again, if you believe in one person, one vote, and basically equal rights, equal application of rights. And so that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's
We're
good talking to you
talking
guys. I
about
gotta
No, thanks.
hop on
Thanks
over.
for hopping in. I know it was kind of like spontaneous, but I appreciate you. Let me read these. Let me read these super
Yes.
chats. And then I'll let you ask your question, Andrew, to Lactoid. But I got to make a little money here, right? So, $20
I'm
from
gonna pee while you
grassroots.
do that.
Yeah. $20 from Grassroots Hegemon to say the more liberal mind has trouble understanding that Musk is literally a breathe them out monarchist. My issue with him is I have been filing envelopes for 10 years for the LP, and Musk is using my beliefs as a shield. $20 more from Grassroots Hegemon to say, I I am a local libertarian, but when people steal the ideals of federalism and pervert them to destroy the philosophy that undergirds it, it is, in my view, dishonest and evil. Thank you for the $40. I appreciate it. Once he gets back, you can ask your question, Andrew.
Oh, the envelopes must be a lot of work. Yeah, I don't know much about egalitarianism. I guess I got to do some research on the political ideology, so I couldn't really add much to that. But I'll just, when he gets back, I'm going to ask him about Elon's $1 million giveaway he was doing to swing state voters.
The
I
lottery.
saw that. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. How about you? What's your take
Yeah,
on
go.
it? Well, we wait for that.
I think that's dancing around the rules, right? You know, like you're not allowed to pay people to vote, but he's like, I'm not paying you to vote. I'm just paying you to take a pledge, right? That's all he was doing. Just protect the First Amendment and Second Amendment. What's wrong with that?
In specific swing states, though.
Yeah, right. And clearly that's why he wanted to do it. And so I hear it's a little shady, but it's starting to. It's that thing I'm trying to say, which is no matter how you write the rules, they're going to get around them. Like if you had all the perfect rules you wanted, I will find a way to get around them. Okay, so you got to compete. You have to compete, and that's the thing that Elon does well is compete. He finds ways to win, right?
All right, so it goes back to again. So
I heard the
left
question.
Okay, you did hear the question. So $1 million giveaway take.
My understanding is that it wasn't based on who you voted for. It was just if you were registered to vote in a swing state, then you were like eligible, even if you voted for Kamala.
Mm.
So really, it was just
That's
a get
right.
out the vote campaign. Really,
Essentially, yeah, and that's probably how
I
his
don't know
lawyers
the
got around
details
it.
of the
Yeah, it's about
so I know the details
Same,
because
yeah.
look, I know the details, and
I do
my
too.
understanding is you say, hey, I like the First Amendment, and I like the Second Amendment, right? And I'm registered to vote in this swing state, and if you like sign the pledge saying that you like those amendments, then you're eligible, and if you're registered to vote, you could vote for Kamala Harris and like
You
still
could.
be eligible for the money. So it's not like, again, like buying vote. I like it's rhetorically speaking, which is interesting because in his drive-by, Econoboy talked about like rhetoricians or whatever. But yeah, buying elections is a rhetorical trick. What do you mean by buying elections? You mean advocating for your position. Like that's what you mean. I have the money to afford this Yeti microphone and the computer and the solid internet connection in the house in which I am streaming my political views and I am talking to an audience. Homeless people don't have that ability. They're out there like begging for crumbs. They don't have any, and they don't have the ability to do that. But if you're telling me I can't, like if you say Lactoid's not allowed to do that anymore, that's bullshit. Like you're violating my freedom of speech. I have the right to come out here. And the rift between like, yes, I understand the rift between me and Elon is very large, but the rift between me and some homeless guy is incredibly large. You think anybody would listen to that guy?
It's fair. Yeah.
When we're talking about situations like quote unquote like when we're talking about buying elections or what people mean by buying elections, I think that the way that I can kind of enumerate that or describe that would be it's similar to the way you would describe a monopoly. Like somebody could see somebody with a monopoly or some company that's a monopoly and be like, "Oh my god, what? People want their products and they're just providing them. What's the problem? They're allowed to do that." Which they're allowed to do that, but there's another thing at play, right? Essentially, when people talk about buying elections or people talk about Elon's influences, it's that he has basically a monopoly as far as the lengths that he's gone so far and the amount of influence he has, right? It's not like anybody else has done this to this degree in the past. It's not like this is something that just happens or that somebody else could go, oh, I'm going to go compete with Elon to be Trump's homie, and do all the things that Elon did. Like, that's not really possible. Like, we've gotten to the point where the difference isn't, oh, hey, there are all these people who are billionaires who have some influence in government. They're all over here. When one's over here and none of them that are down here could ever get up here, that's different. That's when we're talking about stuff like buying election.
Not to mention, Elon's not like unbiased. He's not like this unbiased person that's just hoping for the best. He's clearly made his positions clear. He's clearly campaigned for Trump, bought Twitter for him, gave money to a significant amount of money to his election. He's specifically driven a specific political ideology. So I'm going to go back to that giveaway thing. While it was in swing states, and sure, you could have won if you voted for Kamala, but let's not play games, okay? Let's not BS. It was completely like if you were going to vote for Donald Trump in a swing state, just like
They can't monitor that.
I don't give it. I
He
don't
did
care.
not.
Just
And
like
he
they
did not buy Twitter for Trump.
like they
He-
they kept
he said that a
RFK
couple
Jr. on
times,
swing
but
states too. What's that? Who
He,
said
he
what?
did not buy Twitter for Trump. Like he bought Twitter long before Trump, right?
But he
No,
bought Twitter
for
for Trump. He
Trump.
bought 44. He bought it to specifically platform Donald Trump in the American election for Donald Trump.
Oh no way. Yeah, he
Do we have evidence of
definitely
this?
bought it because he's a shit poster and he loves posting memes and shit.
So
Like,
so the memes and shit posting for in favor of the Republicans and Donald Trump
that
completely.
purchase
is
went through
just-
in 2022, right? That was 2 years ago. That was long before the election.
take
so-
what we were still
I
in
knew
the Biden
election was
presidency.
going to happen.
Yeah, the election was coming. It's not like we don't know when the elections are.
Okay.
We knew who was running.
I'm just
for the
telling you,
matter.
I don't think that that's true at all. But he was going to buy Twitter no matter who was running for president, right? Because that's what he wanted to do.
He went on Joe Rogan and said, "We need to vote for Trump, or it's like the end of America, basically."
Yeah,
He
he did
endorsed
that.
him.
I know
after
you
Trump
guys.
got
I know you're agreeing
after-
with everything I'm saying. I know you because that's
Well,
what that's
after
what,
Trump
that's
got
what I'm wrong
assassinated,
with.
He
that's
endorsed
after
Trump
Trump
very
got
strongly.
assassinated. That wasn't. He
Amazing.
didn't endorse Trump until the assassination attempt. Before then, he didn't endorse him. He was very right leaning, but he didn't endorse anybody until the assassination attempt. You can look it up. I'm certain that's true.
Right, this is
He
the
never
world
once
that this
endorsed him.
side lives in. Okay, they live in this world of plausible deniability, right? Where y'all could sit
Well-
there in the shh zone where, you're like, hey,
Yeah.
oh,
The
I don't
shh
endorse
zone?
anybody. Oh, I'm a centrist. But then when we talk about our ideas, the types of politicians that they give lip service to, or they make excuses for, like when we're talking about, something that involves like Biden, it's always among a lot of these people, it's, criticism, criticism, criticism. But then, Trump, oh, well, he just believes that. Oh, he's crazy. Oh, well, he just wants the best. Oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
Right?
sure,
It's
yeah.
excuses on one side and like dick sucking on the other. So, I mean, it's like you can say that, we only support or we don't support either. We're not endorsing or we're centrist, but it's the actions that really speak
Okay.
louder than that.
We're kind of
I hear ya.
circling the drain a little bit on these on this topic here, right? I think we've made the arguments, right? Is there anything related to Elon Musk and Trump and the government that we haven't covered that you'd like to discuss today? Otherwise, we'll just go into closings. What do you think?
Kyle Rittenhouse was a hero.
I think I've established my points. Wick.
Okay, fair enough. Well, in that case, gang, I know it's a Christmas this week if you celebrate, and so we are going not to have any streams on Christmas. I will do a caroling stream tomorrow. If you want to carol with me, you're more than welcome to sing a Christmas carol or two. But there won't be no political debatings tomorrow. It's just gonna be Christmas carols. And then soon, TM, we're gonna get a specific date for you. Destiny will be joining us, and we will be hosting a debate on the CEO shooting that happened of late. Destiny thinks that it was unjustified, can't be justified, and was very wrong. We're gonna have some people to argue with them, right? And it should be fun. We'll get you a specific date as I get it. But thanks for being here, gang. We're gonna give the mic to each of these lovely individuals, tell you where you can find them, and I hope you go and give them a follow. I have links to all their stuff in my description, so just click on that link, go to the site, and you can give them a follow or subscribe or whatever. But let's start with Katiusha, and we'll end with Andrew Mercado. Go ahead.
All right, so thanks for having me on, Wick. I'm Katya on Twitter and also on Blue Sky at Premier Katya. Sorry that for like towards the end of this, I've been like slightly like looking super tired. I was in Orlando for the last 3 days and just drove back this morning, and I'm like, but hey, I tried my best to be a part of this discussion because I thought this was a really cool topic. So hi.
Well, thanks for being here, and hopefully you can get some rest and have a great day. Next up, James, please.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Wick. I do think if it was just about money, like, Kamala outspent Trump. Kamala raised much more money than Trump, like more than like $500 million more or something, right? I try to be this reasonable guy. At the end of the day, I just want progress. And if the Trump achieves it with Elon, great. Like, I'm going to root for these people to succeed. And if they do something bad, I will call them out when they do something bad. I'm not just going to, be a sycophant for them, right? So I want to cheer on progress. I'm going to hope for the best, and if something goes wrong, I will call it out. And follow me on Twitter if you want. But thanks.
No, thanks for being here. Check him out. I have a link to his Twitter in the description. You can check that out. Lactoid, please.
Yeah, Kamala Harris did outspend Trump by a significant margin. I'm pretty sure in every single swing state. Pennsylvania was very close, but I mean, she outspent him by a lot. And you know, they use this money to advocate for their positions, and the American people said no, because ultimately you can advocate for your position, you can engage in advocacy, you can spend money doing so, but you have to convince the voter, because that's the way the Constitution is set up. And in the same way, Elon Musk was very clear about all this stuff, and Donald Trump was very clear about all this stuff before the election, right? It's not like Elon hid the fact that he was giving money. It's not like Trump hid the fact that there was going to be like the DOGE, and there was going to be government accountability. There was going to be cuts to the government. All stuff that Elon Musk advocated for and Donald Trump advocated for, and that's what the voters selected. I'm going to reiterate what I think this really is, which is that Elon Musk is supposedly a oligarch because of sour grapes. And when the billionaires fund positions that the left likes, all of a sudden they're not oligarchs, they're activists, right? These actors are going out and drawing attention to issues as opposed to advocating for issues, or I guess buying elections, which is, obviously just the difference in rhetoric. That's really all it is. There's really no fundamental difference here. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for the $50, Grassroots Hegemon. Thanks for the 10 memberships, aka Batozai. Thanks for the €5, Ant. Continue to stuff my stocking, gangs. Okay, let's give it to Andrew. Andrew, close us out.
Wick, thanks again for having me on another panel. I always love when I can be on here and just have discussions. I don't do it too often, so I'm still getting my feet wet with it. Mercado Media cover breaking news and events, travel places as well in person to try to give perspectives on the ground, because I feel first-person perspectives are more important than third-party perspectives, because that leaves room for analysis. And I mean, you can still do that, but I feel like being there on the ground somewhere gives you at least a valuable piece of documentation or video or whatever. So we do that here at Mercado Media. I still hold the position that Elon Musk is a danger to the U.S. government. His actions leading up to the election and during right now are very, very dangerous. But like what Wick said, I don't think there's much we can do other than, my position, other than publicly advocate against it, use populism if it becomes so bad, right? You're going to have to band together and speak out against it, because I just don't know any legislation to stop Elon. That's probably going to create a whole drama in itself. And I just don't see another way to stop it if you're against Elon doing what he's doing, right? And if anything, we've learned from this panel that sounds like the Democrats need their own billionaire to fund and be the right hand of whatever Democrat politician, I guess. Yeah, we'll put Wick there. We'll put Wick as the worm tongue of Kamala or whatever. We'll dig Biden back up. I don't know. But thank you, Wick, again for having me on. It was a pleasure.
No, thanks for being here. Gang, check him out. Link to his stuff in my description. Give him a follow. Give all these lovely people a follow. And with that, we're going to end for the evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. If you have a favorite Christmas carol you want me to sing, by all means, give me, just let me know, and I'll sing it. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye.
Yep.